Hey guys, welcome back. So last week I filmed a video on what we take on destination weddings. However, I did feel like it was a little too messy. I filmed it somewhere else in the meeting room. And I feel like if you guys are watching, the least that I could do is give you guys something that's of quality and something that you can follow a lot easier. So I'm refilming this today and let's get started. So whenever we get a destination wedding, we've gone to a few places.
Why are you going to the airport? Flying somewhere?
Usually it's New York that I go back to just because I grew up there. So a lot of the times I have either family, friends, or whoever that recommends us, and we end up going back there. Both the times that I've gone, I've taken Sergio with me. Every single week leading up to it, we're talking about pizza, and we have way too much when we get there. But in any case, this is a photography video, so let's get started. I wanted to go over what kind of equipment we take on destination weddings. The very first thing you need to think about is what is a nice big bag that I can take that will carry most of my equipment, so that way it minimizes, putting things on your back. So for example, I used to carry the Think Tank Airport version 2. That one became a real pain because after a while, I think they might have changed the rules or something like that. That's why they have the version 3 now. So they started bugging about having to check it in, and it just became a real pain. So instead, I went to the Pelican 1535, which is the Pelican Air 1535. It's a little bit lighter than the original Pelican cases, and it does fit a decent amount of stuff. It's carry-on size, so it will always be able to go on the plane unless the plane is full and you're one of the last to board. So here's a little extra tip, if you have this case or something similar, is put a little lock on it because things exist. People steal stuff. So if you have a little lock on it, at least it'll help out because you can't steal a huge case. That's very hard to take. But if you want to grab a little lens and take it out and run out with it, even at a reception hall, I've heard of people doing that they don't seal the whole bag, but they'll take something out of it. So I put a little lock on my Pelican case so that way it's harder to take anything out of it. The second thing I take is the Peak Design shoulder bag. I think it's the larger one, which I believe is a 13-inch one. That one I usually don't carry when I'm traveling, so on the plane, because it does put a lot of weight on your shoulders if you're carrying a lot of stuff in it. And when you're traveling, for a destination wedding, you're usually carrying a decent amount of stuff. So what I do is I usually put that in my suitcase that I check in, and I stuff socks and any little thing in there so that way it doesn't just take up space for no reason. What I do take on the plane is, like I said, the Pelican case to roll, and then I use a backpack, which in that backpack I usually carry, like last time I think the macro lens was the only thing that didn't fit in the Pelican case, so I threw that one in there in a little cloth case. And I carry my laptop, an external hard drive in case I want to get any work done on the way or on the way back. I carry a Kindle in case I want to read and not be so dumb. I carry headphones because this is indispensable. I had noise canceling headphones and I didn't realize until I took them off that there was a baby crying for about 3 hours, like non-stop. Because after that, I did start hearing it when I would take it off to check and see. And it was a 5-hour flight with a baby crying. So if you have noise canceling headphones, I would definitely recommend taking them with you in that backpack. I carry a portable charger for your iPhone just in case when you get there, you gotta go get your rental car, all that. You wanna have all the confirmation numbers and you don't wanna be looking for a charger. Mints, aspirin, and if you get motion sickness, carry some of that as well. All right, so that's all the little tiny things, like traveling things that I recommend. Let's get into what equipment we actually use once we get there. I usually take my Nikon D850 and I take my Nikon D610 or D750 as a backup. The D750 is getting repaired right now, so on this trip I had the D610 as my backup. You always want to have a backup. You never know what could happen, and you just want to have something that just in case you can still finish your job. Next thing is the 24-70. I think that lens, like I mentioned in a previous video, is extremely boring, but at the same time extremely valuable because yes, the 70-200, the 85, all those are really nice and they give you good compression, but if you need to shoot a wedding and you need to get family photos and you need to get portraits and you need to get dancing and all that, the 24-70 will carry you the entire way. So 24-70, don't leave home without it for a destination wedding. The next one is the 70-200. The 70-200, of course, is a great lens to give you really good compression. I like using them obviously for the ceremony, for speeches. That way you're not all in their grill and you can distance yourself a little bit. So 70-200, really good lens to have. One thing I do recommend is taking, if you have an 85 prime, also like an 85mm 1.8 or 1.4, whatever. If you have an 85mm, I would bring it with you just because on this time, they actually did make me check my Pelican in. And so when I got there, the 70 to 200, when I took it out, it kind of made a little noise. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. Luckily, once I clicked it, it went back to normal. I think something might have gotten jostled while it was being thrown around, but everything was fine. However, if I had an 85 as a backup, the 85 has less moving parts. That way, that thing is more likely not to have anything jostle around in there. So I would carry an 85 millimeter also as a backup. The 16 to 28 millimeter, that is basically one of the, like a lot of the shots that you guys see on our Instagram page or on our social media, a lot of those shots are with a very wide angle lens, and that's the one that we use, or at least the one that I use, which is the Tokina 16 to 28 Opera. It's the newest version, and it's a great lens. Also, if you shoot Nikon like I do, with the 16 to 28, if it hits the fan with the 24 to 70 and something's wrong with it, the 16 to 28, you can go into crop mode and at least give you a little bit more reach. Yes, I know that you can just crop and post and it's the same thing, but it is nice to compose in the camera in case something happens to your 24 to 70. I usually do take a charger for the camera just because, you know, it's always good just in case you're shooting more than you think you were going to. I think on this one I took like 8 batteries, so I did take the charger, but I never needed to charge anything, so that was nice. But just take a charger. It doesn't take up very much room, and it's just good to have. The next thing, as you guys well know, we love shooting with off-camera lighting, but recently I got the AD400 Pro, and that thing is massive. It's a big behemoth thing, and it's nice to have, but it's not a must-have, I feel like, especially when you're traveling. You don't want to carry such a heavy flash. So instead of doing that, on this trip, I took the Godox AD200, which is almost the size of a regular flash, but it gives you like 3 times the power, so 2 or 3 times the amount of flash, depending on which flash you're comparing it to. And so we had a AD200 and then 2 Godox TT685s, which the reason I took 2 of those is because, see, I'm always thinking backup plan. I'm always thinking if something goes wrong, what can get me out of that bind? So for example, the remote that we use, the X Pro N, that thing, it controls the flashes. So it's great to have because you don't have to have a big flash on top of your camera, but you'll be able to control all these flashes because they're all in the same ecosystem. But if something happens to that little remote, at least with the TT685s, now you can use either one of those to control the AD200 and to control the other TT685. So that's why I took that instead of taking the 600, which I think only acts as a slave. It doesn't act as a remote like the other one does, like the 685s do. So we took an AD200 and then 2 TT685s. On top of that, we use this little Peak Design pouch. That's where I usually put 2 grids, 2 CTO gels, and then I also put two colors. The colors that we usually use the most is the Magmod Creative Orange and the Teal, because those 2 colors I think work very well together. So with the 2 CTOs, 2 grids, and the colors, you pretty much have all the colors that you need for a job. I also keep extra CTO sheets that in case we need an extra CTO, we can swap out one of the creative color ones and put another CTO in there. And of course, we need to put these things on something so that way, if we're shooting families, for example, or if we need to put the light behind the couple, they need to stand on something. So we use 2 of the Manfrotto travel stands. Those are, the great thing about them is they're lighter, they're smaller to pack, smaller to carry, and so they fit into a suitcase very easily compared to the standard stands that open the other way. Travel stands, they fold differently, so they fold a little bit more compact. So we carry 2 of those and the mag shrew, obviously, so that way the lights have something to attach to. And all that goes into a lighting bag. We use this Manfrotto lighting bag. Usually what I do is I take everything out of it and then I roll it and I put it in my suitcase, so that way it goes in with the rest of my clothes. So even the suitcase has a little bit of extra equipment in it, just not anything that's sensitive. So I wouldn't put flashes, I wouldn't put lenses, none of that. I keep that separately. I only put things in there that are more robust, because you know how throwers are.
Sorry, throwers? Baggage handlers.
They will be throwing your stuff. So keep that in mind. I also take a tripod. So a tripod is not something that we use very much, but on those times where we need it, it's indispensable. So even though it's a pain to carry it, it's just good to have. So, you know, okay, I won't pack an extra pair of shoes or something like that, or, you know, whatever, maybe to offset the weight, but I will carry a tripod, because when you don't have it and you need it, it really stinks. So just carry, you know, we use a pretty light tripod. We don't use like these heavy duty ones. Yeah, Manfrotto Element with a ball head. That one, it's very small, but I mean, it's great. I like how the legs are actually really, they're not the ones that you click, it's the ones that you twist to extend. Those are really good because in the sand, it doesn't really get in there, but I'm going off on a tangent. Check it out. And the last thing, we don't really use this for work. So this I just like to bring just for fun, which is my drone. I picked up a drone like 3 years ago or something like that, and I barely use it, but I just like having it because it gives you a different perspective of any scene, obviously. So I always just throw the drone in, you know, just for fun. It's small because it's the Mavic Pro 2, so it's not like the, you know, the old one that I used to have, the Phantom 4. That one was enormous. That was a pain in the ass to carry. So this one's a lot smaller, so it just comes with us because why not? That pretty much covers all the equipment that we carry, as far as I can think. The last thing I would say is if you can do it, get TSA pre-check. It's just so much freaking easier to get through security. It's so much faster too. So usually we give ourselves enough time to get there and go through security and all that good stuff, but it's just easy. It's so easy to do too. I think I went to John Wayne right behind where we are. And it took me like 10 minutes or something like that to like get my fingerprints in and answer a couple of questions, and I was out, and now I have pre-check. So I would recommend that for you guys if you travel a lot. And I think that pretty much covers all the equipment and all the little tips that I have for now for traveling, as far as, you know, what we carry, what we take. Remember, try to keep your things light. At the same time, just have a backup basically for everything, because when we're here, we know we can always go back to the studio. We can always go back to and pick something up if we need it. It's a little bit harder when you're on a destination wedding. Luckily in New York, if we ever need anything, we just go to B&H, which is right down the street. But yeah, just be prepared for the worst and you'll be fine. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. Leave a comment below. If you think we missed anything, go ahead and leave us a little comment. I will always respond to them. And I'll see you guys on the next one.